Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Meme Team Podcast, the podcast where we discuss viral pop culture moments in movies, TV, music, sports, and politics. I'm your host, Sonia Baschez. This week, we're talking about Zendaya having her 2 films out and how her wardrobe is generating more press than either of the studio's marketing budgets, Hadestown beating Hamilton's opening record, and we're talking about why fan conventions are now the most valuable real estate in entertainment marketing, from Hall H at Comic-Con to Fanatics Fest. This week, I'm welcoming back my good friend, Christina Garnett, who's back for her 7th time on the show. She's the author of Transforming Customer Brand Relationships and The Pocket CCO, a fractional chief community officer who helps brands turn customer love into a real competitive advantage. Welcome back, Christina.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about all these things.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. So this week, I really want to do kind of a deeper dive into Zendaya's wardrobe and kind of what we've come to expect, not just from her, but her partnership with Roach. Because these past 2 movie premieres have basically, hit it out of the ballpark for me, just in terms of like where she's elevating not only fashion, but the movie premieres and like what it means for her, but then also all the other actors that are participating in it, right? Who are now have become part of the meme, right? Like one of my favorite moments was like Robert Pattinson. He was asked on the red carpet about her and like her like movies, and it's like, oh yeah, like we all try to make the space for her, And then obviously, Tom Holland is participating with her, for Spider-Man. So it's been great to kind of, see them together, put out those looks. So we can start with one of the moments that I thought she did really well, which was the Schiaparelli moment where, it came out like the runway piece. Sorry, So the fashion show on the runway happened like in the morning, and then by that evening, she was wearing the outfit, which was like one of the wildest moments I think of any movie premiere. But then goes to show kind of like how, right?
So I called that. I love fashion. One of the people that I follow on Instagram actually had like the video of the Schiaparelli runway show that morning in France, in Paris. And if you look back at that entire collection, everything looks like it was built off of a mannequin, like sized for Zendaya. So I literally said, like, you can find this on Instagram somewhere, but I was one of the first comments to say, I need that first dress on Zendaya immediately. And then like 4 hours later, it wasn't the first look, it was the last look. So it was like the closing thing. But there's a joke about Zendaya, especially her meta dressing, that you can't say what your favorite look is because it's always the next one. Because they did that one. And then like Roach pulled like an archival Alexander McQueen for Givenchy piece with like a mask and everything. And I was like, Law, you're joking. Like, so he's doing pieces that are like hyper new, but he's also going into the archives. So he's not just being like, it's not just this looks pretty, but this is like deeply archival. Like he's really showing off not only the connections he has in the fashion world, but just like the fashion literacy he has, that he's able to pull these pieces knowing that like she's going to look beautiful in absolutely everything. It's Zendaya.
Right.
But there's people who are like, if you know, you know. And I love that her meta dressing is very much if you know from a fashion perspective, but also from a just like general perspective. So if you look at like her brand new day looks, like a lot of them are like very deeply black. But then in China, she wore a mainly white and black piece. And so one of the things that, and this may be a spoiler, but it's not a spoiler to me because I don't know. But they keep saying like, you're going to cry. And so I really think Peter Parker's going to die. He's going to be resurrected in the end, and hence Brand New Day, because it's a whole new life. But I think Venom's going to be there. I think Mr. Negative is going to be there. And I think Mr. Negative also helps save him, because one of Zendaya's look is Mr. Negative's outfit. Like verbatim, white jacket, the whole thing. And so it's fascinating to me how she's doing this, because it really shows it's like her own way of giving these like fashion Easter eggs. And she looks stunning in everything. But I think my favorite look though was the one for the Odyssey where it was the wings.
Yeah. So the matière fécale.
Yes. So it's very much like, of course you played a goddess. You would, like, you can't play a mere mortal. You're not a mere mortal. And it was just stunning. But like the hair and the makeup and the looks and everything else. And so but the way she carries herself, you can also tell that she's not being a prima donna. You can tell, like how you said with Robert Pattinson, they kind of leave space for her because they
Yeah.
know it's going to be a moment, but it
Hmm.
doesn't come across as like, oh, here she is. It comes across as
Yeah.
like, oh my God, did you see her? So this
Hmm.
is like her fellow stars and colleagues, like just absolutely fantastic. But La Roche has been doing this. I mean, there's the
Yeah.
Mugler look that she did for Dune. My favorite Met Gala look is when she did the Joan of Arc piece. Like, just
Hmm.
no one does it like her. Like, absolutely no one. So to see her kind of marry fashion and cinema at the same time, I think is beautiful. And then we still have Dune coming up. Like,
Yeah.
Zendaya is the box office this year. Like, she just
Hmm.
is. It's going to be really cool to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I love what you said about this whole idea of like the Easter eggs, where it's like she's taking what happens in the movie and then bringing that out in her clothes in
Yeah.
such an interesting way, because it shows that she's thinking about not just herself and her character, but the story, and that like
Yeah.
she's using the dress to promote the story.
Yeah.
um and like the movie itself. So I love that she's getting the attention for this,
Yeah.
because it's well deserved, right? Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
not a
Oh yeah.
thing that like it's not that, oh, La Roche is doing it. No, like it seems like it's a partnership of both of them
Yes.
together, where
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at how La Roche works with other clients,
It's not the same.
nobody is having this amount of success. So
Yeah.
clearly her involvement matters,
It does.
for both, like what she's wearing, but then also how it all kind of comes together. And I like that even with the choices she's making, it's not just that it makes sense with the movie itself, but it also makes so much sense for the city she's doing the premiere
Yes.
in,
Yes.
right?
Agree.
So like she does the, London look, or so she does the sorry, the Schiaparelli was for the London look, right?
Yes.
And then
Hmm.
the
Yeah.
wings was the New York
That was
one.
New York. Yeah.
And then, she had the LA look. And it's just like each of those for me, like it made so much sense for the city as well. That
Yeah.
like, I mean, obviously she could have worn the, the Schiaparelli like in Paris, but like
Yeah.
it was still like, no, we're bringing this here, like
Yeah.
that was part of the story, right? Um, and what I love about that was like, it's not just, she's wearing the clothes. It's like, no, we are elevating that designer and then putting their story, and like, that's one thing I feel like they did a lot more this time around. It's like La Roche would like, she would wear the outfit and then La Roche would post on Twitter saying like, this is what she was wearing. This
Hmm.
is, the story behind it, right? Like with the, Schiaparelli, outfit, he told about how this had been 2 years in the making, right? Like
Yeah.
they had gotten the initial drawings for it 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
like he put a hold on that, which shows, again, his power and her influence, right? But then
Yeah.
also that like they'd been thinking about this for 2 years, so that
Mhm.
she was gonna be wearing this outfit, right? And then the same
Yeah.
thing with the Mathieu Frickel, right? Like that was something that they had in the works, to like, put it all. So it's like the fact that it's like it's not just I'm going to a movie premiere and I have to like, be there wearing an outfit. It's like, no, I'm wearing this outfit with this story for this city, and like the whole thing kind of comes together. And I love that all this is coming out as like she's putting so much thought behind it, right?
Oh yeah.
And it is interesting to see how like, I do feel like, Charlize Theron, Lupita Nyong'o, Anne Hathaway, they all have to like raise their own games, right?
Yes.
Because like I think actually for a couple of the premieres, La Roche also dressed them,
Hmm.
right? So it's
Yeah.
like they were all kind of together as like a unit, and those are some of my favorite pictures where it's like she's shining her light on all these other like actresses who maybe like don't care as much as she does, but like
Yeah.
want to step up their game. And so she allows them to like join together and like do it instead of being like, no, no, just me. And then you guys are
Yeah.
off to the side, figure out your own,
Yeah.
outfits. So I love that aspect to it because it, kind of goes back to a lot of what we say here, where it's like marketing together as like an industry raises everybody's boats, right? And like
Yeah.
elevates the whole premiere and like the whole movie, right? And I feel like that's a through line that's been happening with just all of the Odysseys,
Hmm.
marketing in general, right? Because like that's why there's been this huge focus on like watching it on IMAX, watching on
Yeah.
70 millimeter to like heighten the craft and like put it in like people's head that like you need to see this at
Yeah.
the best of the best, right? So if we can
Yeah.
elevate everybody, then that like raises the movie for everybody. And like, look how successful it's been,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, so it's been great to kind of, see that happen, as well.
Absolutely. I think it's all a celebration of craft. I mean,
Mm.
there's plenty of
Hmm.
houses that Zendaya could get a dress from,
Right.
but they're not all going to be haute couture. They're not
Hmm.
all going to be like taking months and months of time. They're not all atelier. Like there's a lot of craft and love in a lot of the pieces that she's wearing. And so I think between that and just the story itself, like everything they've done, I had someone on Twitter who had reached out to me and was like, before it came out and was like, "Are you, like, worried because they haven't done as much marketing as the other stuff?" And I was like, "They don't need to. It's
Yeah.
Christopher Nolan, and,
Yeah.
like, he doesn't have to do all the fireworks that you would see with a summer
Hmm.
blockbuster because, A, this is a well understood story.
Hmm.
It's Christopher Nolan. The cast is
Well, according to
absolutely
some people on
stacked."
Twitter, they don't know many of the plot points that were described in the movie.
But I think it's fascinating to
Yeah.
see how people reacted to it because it's like it doesn't need the marketing.
Hmm.
It's you have all of these moving pieces and a celebration of craft
Hmm.
where everything else feels like it's AI generated. You have these
Hmm.
really brilliant people coming together to make something beautiful and to show you what humans are capable of without CGI, without AI, without all these things. It becomes like a bastion for
Hmm.
creativity.
Yeah, 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 definitely. And I also think it's like one of the smartest things she's ever done for her career is to do this at the same time to show that not only does she have the star power to bring audiences because she's a good actress, but then
Yeah.
also because she can, raise the, um, I don't know, like what it is, but like, it's not necessarily like luxury value, the quality, the craft of by like, putting her name on like the fashion side of things. So if anything, I am surprised that more actresses haven't necessarily done this. Because it's obviously not easy, but you would think there are some other actresses that are interested in like fashion and like using that to kind of try to elevate themselves as well. So I'll be curious to
Yeah.
see how many more actresses, start doing this.
Yeah. No, I did think it's definitely fascinating, but I think there's also moments where Law Roach and Zendaya have kind of shown that like only she can do it.
Hmm.
One of the looks for Brand New Day was just this like I think he got it at, like
Oh,
at
the
a thrift
t-shirt.
shop, but the t-shirt.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
just a very ratty old Spider-Man t-shirt and she looked stunning because of course she did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so funny. I saw somebody they posted about that where somebody asked her that. They're like, "So you're just wearing like a t-shirt?" And then
Yeah.
like Tom Holland steps in and he's like, "The outfit is the legs." you know? So I love this like you have that little moment of him kind of sticking up for her where I'm sure she was just like if I have to explain this to you, like
Yeah, you don't
it's
get it.
you don't get it, right?
Yeah.
But it obviously ended up working out um because they still had that moment. I will say though I have much preferred the Odyssey
Uh-huh.
fashion outfits versus the Spider-Man ones. I felt like the Spider-Man ones this time were a little too on the nose for the whole like spider thing, there's
Yeah.
too many like spider webs. um so, I'm just like, maybe that one, like when I first saw it, because like the first couple outfits were like everything was just like too like spider.
Yeah.
Last night's outfit though here in LA was amazing. She only had like the
Yeah.
spider shoes.
Yeah.
But what do I know? Like obviously there's like more to it, and I will be curious to see how it kind of like fits in with what actually happens to the plot in the movie.
Same.
But that is like a way I think to, like you said, kind of drop those Easter eggs for people to continue keeping an eye out for, right? Where it's like
Yeah.
when you get to see the movie and then you like think back on like, oh, this is why. And I'm sure that's going to be another part of like the marketing that happens, right? It's like, oh, do you
Sure.
remember that she wore this outfit? Like one of the things
Yeah.
the theories that I saw was that like she wore the white in China because in China, white signifies mourning
Yep.
versus like if you think about everywhere else, mourning
Yep.
is exemplified by wearing black, right? So I'm
Yep.
like, okay, so we have to look out for mourning or um grief or somebody
Yep.
dying right as like part of the thing, and then
Yep.
we'll go back and like reference this outfit for this premiere and like see it all as like showcase of like the theories that she was like giving us hints on, right? Okay, so a couple lessons there is that the press tour is the marketing campaign, and she's treating it like one. She knows that she has everyone's eyes on her for every movie premiere, and so she's using that to the utmost, right? By like going really deep into choosing the pieces, learning, having relationships with designers in order to have that ability to, put a hold on something 2 years in advance, know that like, they want to work with her because they're going to be elevated. And that like, I think at the time someone mentioned about the Schiaparelli outfit where they're like, you just have to trust, like they didn't even know what movie premiere this was going to be for. They just like knew that like Zendaya is going to wear you it's going to be a big movie tour. So that the fact that she's built her name on this trust with brands shows that like I think they'll kind of follow her anywhere. And so like, what are those types of relationships and partnerships that you can be developing with other people in the industry that like you can elevate or that can elevate you in a way that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise. And I think that that's been something like interesting here where it's like with the movie, The Odyssey, right? It's like they've been elevating all these things that speak to craft, right? Like the fashion, IMAX, the theaters, the camera, and having that be part of how it relates back to the story. So it's like, what are those bigger visions of things that you can relate your product and service to that are understandable to people so that you can kind of lift those boats for everybody? And then the other one is like, be generous with all the other people that are participating with you, because she could have been, super selfish and like, not shared Law Roach, not had him kind of like help out with everybody else to, take all the limelight because this is what she's known for. This is her thing, right? But instead, she used it as a way to like shine her light on everybody else and then lift the entire cast up. Not just for the movie premiere, but I think there was like a photo shoot, I think in style, that they, were all filmed together and were able to like be there as like their characters. And so that ended up, also promoting the movie as a whole. So think about those ways that like you can elevate other people in your industry and be generous and not just, try to take the light. Any lessons from you?
I think that really pretty much covers it. But I do think like what I said earlier, I think there's a celebration of craft and of not luxury, but quality. Because I think luxury used to mean quality and now it just doesn't necessarily. It just means more expensive for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I think there is definitely a throwback for people who want to see craft, they want to see quality, they want to see the labor of someone who's a genius. There's a lot of people who can't wait to tell you how smart they are, but there's not a lot of people who show you how smart they are. I think Nolan is a great case of that, where you know that he's going to take you on a ride. You know he's a great storyteller. You know that you're going to see something amazing, and then you want to see it in the best possible quality. So you're going to go to IMAX, and it's going to go through. You're going to have to wait in some cities for weeks in order to get a ticket at any time in order to see it. And it's made like over $650 million at us recording this, and this is before it hits China. So like it's gonna make an obscene amount of money. It's gonna be his most successful project, and honestly, it deserves to be. I think you can see the progression of all of his work. It's a tour de force.
Yes. Two things that just remind me of. So I've been going on, not, I wouldn't say a rant, but
Yeah.
I have been going in on the IMAX CEO because I feel like he hasn't used this opportunity of like Nolan pretty much making the first IMAX movie. All the stars saying, go watch an IMAX. Really, I feel like it was the first time that IMAX got all this like free marketing and publicity. And like he didn't translate any of that into, we're going to get cities to help us build new theaters. Like
Yeah.
we have so many stadiums being, given tax benefits and like, money, land so that they can build it there. And like this man hasn't gone out there and tried to like, get any of that. Like, and it makes no sense to me because it's like you have all these very like, A-list actors, A-list directors who care about, not just the film, but like the theaters and the experience. And he hasn't used that to any of their benefit. One, the other thing that reminds me of is that the Odyssey, the movie, ended up costing about the same as Moana, and Moana 2. And the Odyssey was completely filmed using the IMAX cameras A, but all practical effects. And
Yep.
Moana is like a CGI mess that was like filmed in a studio, and
Yep.
like it shows, you know?
It's a case
It's
study.
like,
It is a walking case study, and people don't want like the superhero fatigue, the something
yeah,
fatigue. It's not that. Like if
yeah,
Backrooms and Obsession and the Odyssey versus Moana 2 have shown us anything,
hmm
if you are going to make me spend my hard-earned money, leave
hmm
my house, spend like twice as much as I would have had to spend on a ticket 10 years ago, and then spent like basically the cost of a movie and concessions is what like a nice date was 10, 15 years ago.
hmm
Like I took my family to see the Odyssey and got concessions and not it like it was $150 between the four of us.
yeah,
I have no problem paying for that when it is
hmm
an experience and it is worth the money. But
hmm
if it is not like a $10 ticket anymore,
hmm
it's expenditure. And
it's like
so,
$30 to $40.
yeah.
I
So
mean, here in LA, per ticket.
if
Yeah.
you want revenue, we don't want regurgitated nonsense. We don't
hmm
want 10 million sequels. We want, and if you are going to give us a sequel, it needs to be quality. It needs to be
hmm
good.
hmm
And I think that the masses have been exceptionally loud
hmm
online and with their paycheck and with their money to basically say, like, we just want good stuff.
hmm
We just want
Yeah.
great stories. We just like Backrooms is something that, like, if you're chronically online, you saw those kind of things on YouTube years ago.
hmm
Obsession. There's a Supernatural and Buffy episode that is the exact same storyline. So I'm not even
And The
saying you have to be
Simpsons.
brand new. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm not even saying you have to be brand new.
hmm
But give me something. Give me
Yeah.
something exciting. Give me something worth leaving my house. And I
hmm
feel like that's the litmus test, but they keep saying like, "Oh, we'll do this. Oh, we'll do another animated feature." Oh,
That's what pisses me off about the IMAX CEO, because I'm like, you have the option here. Like, honestly, have you seen the meme of like Christopher Nolan and Ryan Coogler have split time with Ludwig Göransson, right? And I'm like, they should
yeah.
have split time with an IMAX camera, right?
Yeah.
Like, it was just saying that they're filming Black Panther and that he just ended up filming the
Yep.
X-Files on like,
Yep.
80
Oh, I'm so
millimeter
excited. It's
film,
going to be
right?
so good. Yeah.
Right, right. And I'm just like, you have these like directors that care about art and care about craft, and like you're not using any of that. Like IMAX
I can
CEO needs
explain
to,
it.
and they need to bring in
I can explain
somebody.
it.
Oh, explain it, please.
If you look at all the studios, they all come to the wrong conclusions, and it's because none of them
hmm
have a love for the craft.
Yeah.
None of them. None of them.
hmm
They have directors fighting. Like the fact that Netflix has basically said like multiple times, especially when they were talking to Warner Brothers about acquiring them, they were very clear that like we're not a theater kind of thing. And it's
Yeah.
like, and my whole thing was like, okay, why don't you buy IMAX?
hmm
That way, that becomes a very like specific distribution channel in theaters that you
hmm
control, because the whole thing is they don't want to put it in theaters and they lose the revenue. Okay, I
hmm
understand that. Buy IMAX. You now have a legacy. You're keeping all of this going. That will get Christopher Nolan back in the fold, because half of
hmm
Hollywood has pissed Christopher Nolan off because they
hmm
won't give him what he wants.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's like, Universal,
The
give me a
only
blank check. I'll
one,
make money for you.
right? Literally, he is
Yeah,
printing money right now
he's
for
printing
Warner
money for
Brothers.
Universal.
Or Universal, sorry, right, sorry. Warner Bros. Is the one that lost him because they pissed him
Yeah.
off. And so
Yep.
Universal now gets them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Universal's
I
making
like,
so much money, and all they have to do is just be like, whatever you want, Chris. Whatever you
yeah,
want.
literally blank check. The
But
man
they're not
said,
thinking
I
about
could
it.
have spent more money, but I knew that all I needed was $250,000, million dollars. Sorry, $250
Yep.
million dollars. And
Mhm.
like he kept it, he brought it in budget. Like
Yep.
he didn't go
100
over, did
days.
nothing like wrong. And
Yeah,
like
no.
everything like kind of came together because the man knows what he's doing. And so
Yeah.
like if you're
Him and
not
Emma
just
run a
doing
tight
that,
ship, pun intended. Like
right?
pun
Yeah.
intended, they run a tight ship. Like they they were on budget. They were like time budget as well. Like they
hmm
know what they're doing. They've got it down to a
Yeah.
science. And he's gonna put butts in seats. But they
hmm
still don't want to. And I think it really comes down to a lot of Hollywood is run by people who have no love for the game.
Yeah.
They don't have a love for the
Yeah, I mean, look
craft.
at what's happening with Paramount and what is that? Is it Warner Bros? Yeah, it is Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
right?
It's
I mean,
delayed
we'll
right
see what
now. It's
happens
probably
there.
gonna be
Yeah.
delayed until next year. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll see what happens there. But yeah,
Yeah.
one good thing that like was announced this week was that Apple has now become the most, the biggest company. And I was just like, Apple TV has slowly become like
Oh,
the
they're
place for like elite
spectacular.
television,
Yep.
right? Like they just announced Neuromancer. They
Yep.
have Widow's Bay, which ended up
Yep.
becoming like a big
So
hit.
good. So good.
Love it, love it. And I'm like, can they not buy IMAX? That's like a craft
Apple
storytelling
has
type,
money.
they
Apple has
have
money.
money, right? And I was like, if you start doing all that, like you already have most of the directors that basically like you, right? The
Yeah.
next time that you're doing like the F1 movie, right? Like, would that not be good being filmed on IMAX if you can?
Yep.
Obviously, you can't do the other stuff, but
Yeah.
yeah, like that would make so much sense to me, and it
But
would
I think that
fill all
plays
these
well with
things.
but I think that would play well with Apple's positioning anyway. Apple's positioning has always been quality.
Right?
It's always
Exactly.
been like you can get a computer anywhere, but an
Right.
Apple is different. Like
Exactly.
it aligns with their positioning that they would have the quality stuff. I feel like my entire messaging today is going to be like quality.
Yeah,
Like
right.
that's all we
Well,
want, just quality.
it's not just that, but I think a bigger message, at least what I'm hoping companies learn, is that people are willing to pay more. In
Yes.
fact, I think IMAX could like full tilt take this into, you have to dress up and you have to wear like fancy ass clothes to come to like an IMAX film, particularly like 70 millimeter. And we charge you more. No
Yeah.
phones allowed. Nobody can fucking film anything inside here. This is a quiet space. This is an
Yeah.
oasis where people come to escape, and nobody
Yeah.
can talk. Nobody can do anything. You're here to watch the movie, and like they'll make so much more money. Like at this point,
Oh,
I'm kind of
yeah, no,
waiting for
I
the point
agree.
that IMAX like 70 millimeter splits off from like having to be on like the movie schedule. I think they're learning that
Yeah.
this time around, right? Where they're like, the Odyssey's booked out, right? Like we're not even bringing in Spider-Man, right?
Yep.
Because we know that the Odyssey is actually going to bring us money. Like how
Yep.
much further are they going to take that, right? One of the things
Hmm.
that that they've been talking about as well for like IMAX is that like there are so many science museums and like aquariums
Yep.
that have IMAX theaters that have opened them up to the Odyssey because they want to make money. They're like,
Yep.
we have this space. Come watch
Yep.
it here, and they are making bank. I
Yep.
was like, do you know how exciting that is? And here we
Mhm.
go back to the IMAX CEO fumbling the ball and not like
I don't think he
making this.
cares.
Yeah, I know, and
It's
that's
obvious.
what's like
I feel
really
like it's
annoying.
obvious. I feel like it's obvious when you care, but
Oh yeah.
I know that there's been rumors that they want to sell, and so maybe
Hmm.
he's just like, I just want to like kick the ball until someone takes it off of my hands and I can get my cut and just like call it a day.
Yeah.
I think that if he genuinely cared, he would be I don't think it's possible to fumble this if you actually care.
Yeah.
I think that you can see that it's just like we'll just do what we can do and just keep and but think of all the movies like imagine a Criterion collection
Right.
and you
That's
could
what I
do
was
a
thinking. I was like,
festival.
if
Like you
anything,
could
all
do
they have to
IMAX
do.
festivals.
Yeah, IMAX festivals. The other thing I was thinking, I was like, you could literally just go back and forth between Sinners and the Odyssey from now until the end of the year, and like they
Honestly,
will
yeah.
be booked.
I'd go see it
Like that's
again.
it,
Yeah.
right? I'm like, that's all you
Yeah,
have to
I'd
do.
see both of
Put
them.
every Nolan film back on there. Like, it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Like from now until like the end of the year, I don't think anybody really cares to see any of the movies except for Dune. Maybe I'd go see that
yeah.
one.
I wanna see
But I'd
Brand New
give that
Day,
up
and I
for
wanna see Dune, and I
mhm.
think that's it for my year.
Yeah. Like everything else, I have no interest in seeing
Yeah.
at that level.
Same, same.
So that is something I think, for people to think about. I think that's a lesson there, that
Yeah,
people are willing to pay for things for good quality, high quality, and setting an ambiance of like what you
yeah,
want something to mean. And that I think goes in the face of like what every movie executive has been thinking, that like Gen Z doesn't want to watch movies and they certainly don't want to watch them in the movie theater, right? This
yeah.
summer has shown that yes, they do if it's a good story and is good
Yep,
quality. Because like all the movies that you go, right, Backrooms Obsession and
yeah,
The Odyssey are all those
yeah,
like movies that like people are
yeah.
willing to see and like have be a moment.
Yep.
So
We just
create
have
those moments.
it's not superhero fatigue, it's mid fatigue. We're just
Oh
like, don't
yeah.
do anything mid. Like, we
Mhm.
are tired of that.
The other thing too, which kind of goes back to my point about like Moana versus the Odyssey, is that I've heard people start to equate CGI with AI. And so
Mhm,
people are thinking that, oh, CGI is just like AI. Why should I pay this amount to go watch a movie that's like fake and doesn't like isn't handling that craft? One thing. The other thing too is that Pixar just made $1 billion from Toy Story 5. And then they went and turned around
laid
and
off.
fired a whole bunch of like animators. And it's
Yep,
just like, well, then what is the point? What is the point of
yeah,
any of this if like you are not even going to continue trying to like, give us new stories, and then you fire the people that are at least are just, doing good-ish stories for like
yeah.
current IP,
Mhm,
it's just like gives people like a bad a bad feeling, and then they don't want to support you. So like I completely see why like they would go from Toy Story 5 to being like, well, I'm not gonna watch Moana 2, like why would I watch that? And then like I mean I guess the Marvel movies, right, are the ones that are like coming out, and we'll see how, you know, those have kind of those are going to turn out,
I have
because we've
thoughts on
already seen.
Doomsday. I have so
Yeah.
many thoughts on Doomsday.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get
um
blacklisted by Disney for like half my thoughts.
yeah.
No, I think it's fascinating because so you have Brand New Day, which looks amazing. I'm very excited about it. All the critics are basically comparing it to Raimi's Spider-Man 2. So like I feel
Okay.
like I could not be more excited.
Yeah.
Doomsday is a complete opposite. They laid off basically all of their design team, people who'd been there for like decades, people who
Mm.
literally created the visual brand of what Marvel looks like, especially the MCU. And then whoever decided to drop the new Doom teaser like 3 days after the Odyssey opened and people had been
Oh,
talking
that's
about
right.
it. I don't want to say I could do your job better than you, but I could absolutely do your job better than you, because what did you think was going to happen? You are turning in the same dark visuals, the same cookie cutter, the same, even acknowledging that there's going to be some AI usage in the movie, and you're putting it out 3 days after the entire world has discovered that you can literally have an epic Greek mythology without CGI. You can use
Mm-hmm.
practical effects to create a Cyclops
Mm-hmm.
and a Scylla for that matter. Like, what do you mean you have to use computer graphics? What do you
Yeah.
mean you laid off your entire team? And so, yeah,
So not
I
only
don't have
that
good
though,
thoughts.
but if you will recall, it is
Mhm.
also coming out on the same day as Dune 3,
Yep.
which is being done with more practical effects, with like, you know, I don't want to say better actors, but better actors. The story, like, even though people already know, you know, essentially what's going to happen, it's just like Dune 1 and 2 were such spectacles and like
Yeah.
events that people for sure are going to go see those. And
Yeah.
they have, and Doomsday has refused to move their day. You know,
I
like
don't think they
a lot
can.
of
I don't think
critics,
they can.
I feel like critics were like, they could have done it like months ago. Now they can't,
Yeah.
you know?
Now they can't, because if they do it now, it looks like they're accepting defeat. I think Dune is going to dog walk Doomsday. Unless something crazy
I
happens.
think we all think that. And
Yeah.
so the fact that they are now going to get dog walked is going to look even worse. It's just like, we all knew this was
Mhm.
going to happen. And then you did
Yeah.
it anyway. And now I don't even
Yeah.
feel sorry for you, because you did it to
Yeah.
yourself and you deserve to be blamed and dog
Yeah.
walked because you
Well,
didn't listen to everybody telling you what
mhm.
was going to happen.
Well, I'll be honest, like I religiously pay attention to what happens at San Diego Comic-Con. I
Hmm.
honestly am too introverted to go. Like
Yeah.
being around that many people and having to wait in line for like 8 hours to exist in Hall H,
Hmm.
I'm not built for that, and I acknowledge that. Um, but I have to say, this is the first time that I've watched a Marvel. Like I was keeping up, I was watching New Rock Stars, I was following on Twitter and like all the people. Um, this was the first panel that I've seen at San Diego Comic-Con where I left defeated. I left less hype than more hype.
Yeah.
I'm excited about Black Panther 3. I'm excited about Ghost Rider. I think both
Yeah.
are going to be absolutely fantastic. Doomsday, I'm good. I have no desire to see it. I've read the leaks, and
Hmm.
they could be real, they could be fake. Um there's a lot that has to happen in order for them to fix things, but I have a real serious problem with them. Like Wanda's my favorite character. My husband jokes
Yeah.
that there's an OP woman that's gone through some stuff. I'm gonna like her. That is true. So my thing is like there's no Wanda, there's no
Yeah.
Storm, there's no Jean Grey, there's no Rogue, there's no Captain Marvel, there's
So
no
what
Monica
women are
Rambeau.
left?
They gave us Peggy Carter again. I could boycott just for that. Like stop trying to make Peggy a thing. Like I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. I can't. So my thing is I'm literally gonna have to wait till it opens, scour Reddit and be like, where is the full spoiler thing? Walk
Hmm.
through and see if Wanda appears anywhere, which will probably
And
be at
then
the
decide
very
if you're going to
end.
see it.
And then decide if I'm gonna go. Yeah. I have to spoil myself to be like, are you even worth the money? Because right now you're not worth the money. It's so frustrating. And they asked the Russo brothers about it. If like where's Captain Marvel and where's Wanda, and they're like, there's still room for surprises. And I was like, the surprises, you're not getting my cash. The surprises, I'm gonna spend my money on literally anything else. I'm gonna go to Dune
Yeah.
while you figure out women exist.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
I
can't.
guess
I'm
that's
so thoroughly
no.
disappointed.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next topic about Comic-Con and
Yeah.
events and how these spectacles, these conferences have become like these tentpole
Hmm.
must be at events, right?
Yeah.
Um for these reasons, right? Where it's like you know that people are going, it's going to be the fans of the fans, you have the critics, everybody's kind of there, you get the actors and everybody, to like present the best things that are going to come out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Comic Con last year, but which was the event that had like the director's chairs of like the art, Thor coming back and
That was
Captain
separate.
America.
That
Oh,
was
okay,
like
okay, okay.
that was a whole thing. Yeah.
Okay, got
That
it.
was like a video campaign for them to announce Doomsday was coming. And then it was like, was it like an hour long video of like
Yeah,
they just turned the chair, they just kept adding a chair with a name. Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, but the point that I'm trying to make is that is what I equate with Marvel these days at like Comic Con and like events, right? Where it's like you're just kind of rehashing what worked for you before and
Yeah.
try to, bring that back and not trying to make room for, all the characters to come back. Like, right? Wanda, I would love to see Wanda come back, right?
I think they're all coming back for Battle World. I
Mhm.
think that Doomsday, because Doomsday is very much Empire Strikes Back. They're gonna lose.
Mm,
Like they're gonna lose. He's
okay.
gonna create Battle World, and then that opens up Secret Wars, and then Secret Wars is gonna have literally everybody because you basically have like the teams fighting against you. It's like Civil War on steroids,
Oh,
where
okay.
you have like the teams fighting each other. Because basically Doom creates a planet where basically everyone's fighting each other. And so that's when you're going to see all that. That's when I think everyone's going to come back. So I think like Wand is going to be shown at the very end.
Mm.
Um, and I hope they don't do her relationship with Doom like they do in the comics. I absolutely don't want to see that, but like it is what it is. Um, but I think that's where everyone's coming. I think you're going to have a select group here, and then
Mm.
you're going to have
So
like
what is
everyone
that?
show
The
up.
the
The
after
Secret
credit
Wars,
film or whatever.
yeah,
Oh, we'll
Battle
be that
World,
again.
and then Secret Wars, yeah,
Interesting. Yeah. So it just kind of seems like a rehashing of like old movies or things that we've already, seen.
yeah.
Um, but at least there was some like, interesting stuff, right? Like Ryan Gosling was announced as Ghost Rider,
I was
right?
very
And
excited
I like that they kind of paired that back to the conversation he had with the podcast host that
with
like,
Josh. Yeah,
yeah, with Josh Horowitz, who um went to Kevin Feige and was like, Ryan Gosling wants to be like Ghost Rider. And then like Kevin Feige's like, we want to make room for Ryan Gosling. And so that's kind of like how it happened. It's just like, how
yeah,
cool is that you can tie this back to like a fan moment, right? To
yeah.
like the actor and being like the middleman between that. And then they announced David Johnson as the new Black Panther. So that's
Great
like also
choice.
really cool.
Great choice.
Right? Who's having a moment after doing the long walk.
Yeah.
And being one of those like new faces, so that
Mhm.
part of it was like super interesting. And I think the other one that I was like really super excited about was Apple TV announcing Neuromancer,
Mhm. Yep.
because it like is showing how much like Apple TV is like we have found our lane with like science fiction and like
Yeah.
fantasy and like book worlds.
Yeah.
I also like feel like they're like a company that I trust because they
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
made that, storytelling and craft be such a factor into like what they're putting in. There are some quibbles here and there with like foundation of like whether it's like, really sticking to the book. But
It's in their defense, it's hard to stick to that book.
right,
That
right,
book
right,
is
right,
out
right.
there. It's kind of like Dune. As some like there's a reason
Exactly.
why Denis Villeneuve is only doing is like ending at Messiah because it
Mhm.
goes off the books go off the rails after that. There's no way he could like do it with a straight face after that.
Yeah. So that's where it's like, at least I know that they have a vision or that they are
Yeah.
allowing artists or creators to have a vision, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's like a thing where you know for me, like if these studios want to go back to like bringing people back, like that's what they have to do is like allow the artists and creators to have these visions.
Yeah.
But it's like interesting to me that they are using like events to like announce these things, that it has just become fully a part of how you're promoting your work. The other
Yeah.
one that I wanted to mention was the Fanatics Fest, which
Mhm.
had 200,000 attendees and 500 athlete appearances. Tom Brady, Justin Bieber, Shaq, Jay-Z all showed up. Um, And this has like been a growing event that is being put on by like Fanatics, right? That's like a sports, athletics brand that has been doing it, long enough now that like they have the cachet to actually start bringing in like those like
Uh-huh.
superstar names and the fans together. And I think that like a thing that like I want to, have kind of be like a lesson for people here is that like fans want to be close to the things and people that they love. And
Yeah.
the more that like companies can try to do this as like a way to make it more natural, where it's like, yeah, you're going to have these like really cool moments that's like are, will bring attention to themselves, right? It's like people are going to make announcements here. You're going to have, celebrities participating in ways that they wouldn't. Makes it like really interesting. Like one of the companies I love is The Ringer, right? So it's like they hosted a panel at like Comic-Con this year, and like this has been like a long-standing thing where it's like they actually are usually they would have done it as like a podcast, but this time they're like it's not going to be a podcast. It's just we're doing the event as we're doing the panel as like a standalone event, right? So it's like now you're starting to have these like I don't want to say it's like gatekeeping, but it kind of is, right? Where it's like only the
Yeah.
people that go there are participating, right? So it's
Yeah.
like but you have to give the people that are participating and are making the trek to go out there a way to like experience things differently and separately. Like we had this
Yeah.
conversation now where it's like, the Super Bowl and like the World Cup and like all these like sports events that people go to, like the Super Bowl show is no longer for the people in the stadium. It's filmed
Yeah.
for the people that are watching on TV, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, how do you flip that and make it so that the people that actually attend feel special in some way and that
Yeah.
they, like we were talking earlier, them spending that money is worth it for them,
Yeah.
So that's like a way to like kind of think about it. It's like, what are these industry events that like we want to like hold up and make sure that we put money behind
Yeah.
so that like it actually makes it worth it for everybody, the people participating, but then also like the fans that are using, are paying for these tickets.
Yeah. No, I think that also goes back to the Odyssey too, though. I think
Hmm.
and versus the Moana 2 thing is I think with AI and everything else that we're seeing right now, everything else that we're experiencing is we want the real. And there's
Hmm.
nothing more real than being in a room with somebody and having your favorite actor in front of you or having your favorite creator. So like I went to GalaxyCon Richmond last year with actually it was probably earlier this year. It was earlier this year. This year has been crazy. Um, with my
What
daughter and
is
my family.
GalaxyCon?
GalaxyCon, it's like a locational it's a Comic-Con basically.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a comic book convention. There's all this other stuff. So we got to see like some of the members of Jurassic Park and Edgar Wright was there. And they had like all these other panels. We went specifically because my daughter loves The Flash and they had a lot of the actors from the Flash TV show. It was like a panel one day. So I just remember like we were in line as soon as we could and we immediately got there so she could have a good
Hmm.
seat so she could have that moment
Nice.
and being really
Hmm.
close to them. Um, but also you have opportunities to connect. I mean, we want a third place. We want to connect with not
Yes.
only our peers, but we want to connect with the people that we are excited about. So like for me, I got to meet Chris Claremont at GalaxyCon Richmond, and he
Hmm.
signed my Dark Phoenix,
Yeah.
my copy of Dark Phoenix. And so being able to say, like, your work is one of my favorite pieces of literature, not even comics, like of
Hmm.
literature. And I need you to know how important it is and how much you are appreciated while he's signing it. And like my husband's taping the whole thing, but that only exists in these little pockets. Like there's
Yeah.
very few opportunities for fans to not only connect with each other, but to connect and really kind of showcase their love. Like it's one thing to go on Twitter and be like, "Hey, I love this movie." It's another to travel, to
Yeah.
go, to be able to spend time there and be like, "No, no, I actually this is my favorite movie, or this is my favorite
Hmm.
character, or this is all these things." And so I think it's really powerful that we are just like as humans we are constantly wanting real. We are constantly wanting connection. We are constantly wanting a third place. And if you look at society right now, there's not as many comic book stores as there were like in the 1980s.
Hmm.
Where do people get to hang out? They're usually in digital third places that are becoming more and more commodified or more and more hate driven. And so like the normal people like I used to love this, but now it's not a good place for me. And
Hmm.
so these spaces become really special for people because you know that you're going to be in with your, like other people. You know, you're
Yeah.
going to get like, these are my people. These are people who
Yeah.
love this as much as me. That's a really powerful feeling. And it comes down to this just human need to belong.
Would love your perspective because one example that I also wanted to talk about was YC. They did an event at one of the stadiums in San Francisco. And, they had Sam Altman and Jensen Huang of NVIDIA there as like headliners. But it seems as if the internet pretty much like deadpan, panned it, calling it, kind of lame, that it seems as if you're trying to bring everybody together just to charge them money when the whole point
Yep.
of YC is to, be exclusive. And then here you are
Yep.
trying to, bring everybody together of like the applicants that like didn't get in.
Uh-huh.
And then like the, general partner had to publicly defend, saying that their goal isn't scarcity when of course it is. um,
Yep.
and like it was kind of showing that like you can't just throw people into a room or an arena together and expect it to go well. So would love to know kind
No.
of like your thoughts behind that, because, there are ways to obviously do these events and show that you care about the people, which I think
Yeah.
is part of the problem of what YC didn't do, that they made it
Yeah.
more about themselves than about like the people.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other thoughts you have on that?
Yeah. So I've been doing a lot of work and research in like sociology, especially how sociology plays with community and trust and customer experience and all these things. And so it's fascinating to me, especially for that kind of community event. You're dealing with a lot of like identity theory, so like how people
Mhm.
see themselves. And
Mhm.
then you see these people who are usually kind of lifted on high as to like how, and they're separated from everyone else because of the work they do and their version of like what they think their technology is going to do in the world. But then you open it up to people and you have to decide like what are we really doing this for and who is it for?
Mhm.
What is our goals for this? Because there tends to be an idea that community building is easy when it is exceptionally hard.
Yeah.
Exceptionally hard. It's one of the most difficult things. Like people who are, and also it's one thing to build for you, it's another to build for somebody else. Like you can build
Mhm.
community for other people and it be successful, but if you built a community that works for you, it might be incredibly difficult, like almost impossible, and vice
Mhm.
versa. And so what I think is interesting is if we look at community, we also have to look at the K-shaped economy and
Mhm.
how it is switching things and how it is impacting us. Because what we're seeing is that community continues to be commodified.
Mhm.
So their whole thing is like you just want people to pay for this. You just want, so what you're saying is you are now going from a place of scarcity where you had to like earn your way in because you were bright or brilliant, or you had this great idea, or you worked really hard, or you went to Stanford, or whatever the criteria was. And that went to, you know what, we'd actually just need anyone who can pay the right amount of money.
Mhm.
So you went from an invitation to a country club real fast. And so what I find is very interesting is we keep commodifying things. I think a really great example of this is Coachella. And I think if
Mm.
you compare San Diego Comic-Con and the Fanatics Fest and then Coachella, I think that plays along with what the real is, because
Mm.
a lot of people, I have friends who've gone to Coachella the past few years, and every year they hate it more and more and more
Mhm.
because it's become influencer fest. It's become the influencer Olympics. And so what they went there for, the experiential of the real, now just looks like a brand ad.
Mhm.
So like they're there, they're experiencing stuff. It's real on paper, but it's commodified to the point where it does not do what they need it to do. And so they want to leave. And so I think it's fascinating that we continue to try to commodify community. We continue to try to think that we can just shove all these people in a room and it'll all work out and we'll do everything we need to do, when we have completely forgotten what we need community for. Like YC has done a really great job with their community building because of how they set it up. Because if you're in there, for better or for worse, you are peers,
Mhm.
you are founders, you are creators, you are entrepreneurs. And so by turning it into something that is accessed by pay instead of accessed by criteria, you've shown that it has nothing to like you don't earn a spot anymore. You pay for a spot. And that completely changes how people see that community because you've changed the table stakes, but you want the members of the community to treat it exactly the same way. It's not. If you switch the norms, it's going to switch the behaviors of the humans in that system. And I don't think people realize that, especially people who don't do community work.
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting, this whole idea of like changing the identity makes the people that were originally like hardcore fans feel like,
Yep.
oh, this isn't
Yeah,
really for
we're
me
not the chosen
anymore.
ones anymore. Yeah, it's identity
And how
theory.
easy it
Yeah.
is to lose that, right?
Yep.
But also, I do want to like call it because I feel like maybe like even 5 years ago, Comic-Con felt like it was starting to lose its status because like it wasn't the place that all these, companies had to go announce their thing at, right?
Yep. Hmm.
It kind of started spreading, like Disney started having their own thing, and once like Disney did, I think Marvel did on its own, like
Yep.
what we originally started talking about, right? The one with the seats. And somehow they managed to pull it back, right? Because this one actually felt like an event again that like
Yeah.
you had to be at, right? Where it's
Yep.
like all these announcements were happening. And maybe that is, a testament to the fact that like Marvel and like Disney are losing their own standing and felt like, hey, we need to kind of go back into the fold of Comic-Con in
Yep.
order to get people hyped up again because what we were doing by ourselves isn't as effective anymore because they kind of
Yep.
like, washed out their own brand with all these like, remakes and, redos and everything. And so like going back into the fold with Comic-Con actually made sense and has now elevated them once again. And they had enough like new exciting things to announce that
Hmm.
made it worth it for them to be at Comic-Con and get people like hyped up. But also I think part of it is like what I mentioned, like the Ringer, they had a couple of panels. So it's like really going back to like the actual communities of people that are in it, right? That are like
Yes.
hardcore devotees of like the IP and the brands. And then
Yeah.
having those like bring in their
Yeah.
audiences as well. So
Hmm.
it's like you're kind
Yeah.
of creating concentric circles about like we have the brands, but then we also have like the people that are building their own communities that are around those like brands, and then like the fans and the audiences themselves. So it's like you have layers of like access that you're giving to people, right? Where it's like,
Yeah.
fine, you might not meet like Ryan Gosling, but you might meet, Mallory Rubin or like Joe, from like the Ringer because they're
Yeah.
there and they're like huge
Yeah.
fans and like you're fans of
Yeah.
them. So I
Yeah.
think like that's another thing to like think about here. It's like, how are you kind of having those like levels of like
Yeah.
entertainment for people that like you're not, giving them the A-list stars, but you're giving them some
Yeah.
access that makes them feel special and makes them feel as if it's worth it for them to pay for access to these events.
Yeah. Well, there's also lots of stories of like the famous people that are there going incognito in costume so they can walk
Mm-hmm.
around. So like Ryan Reynolds before he crashed the Marvel thing in his like
Mm,
gray jean Deadpool thing, he specifically was there. And it showed a video of him like
mm-hmm.
walking the halls and walking through Comic-Con, taking pictures of the fans. They just
Mm-hmm.
didn't necessarily know it was
No, it was
him.
him.
And then, I mean, but there's tons of stories of people doing that. So I think it's a huge opportunity to like you might be mingling and meeting celebrities that you may not know of, but you also get to meet like really cool people and just
Mm-hmm.
I think the other thing too that kind of gets lost is there was is all of the cosplay that's done there, also like
Mm-hmm.
the stuff like the proper cosplay at San Diego Comic-Con. A lot of those people have been doing they've been working on those costumes for like a year. Like they are
Mm-hmm.
handmade, they're going
Yeah.
out for contests, like they're absolutely and some of them are like really highly like obviously well known, but some of them are like very much a deep cut. And so
Yeah.
I think once again, craft, like there's a lot of artists there, there's a lot of really cool
Mhm.
people that go there. And so it's a really great place to connect and see it. It's a celebration of like all this art, all these things that have come to life. I think
Mhm.
it's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so a couple lessons from me. You can't manufacture devotion. I think by having like the hardcore fans who do go all out and then rewarding that is gonna like
Mhm.
always repay because you want to, give back to like your hardcore of hardcore fans, right? Like
Yep,
I feel like
reciprocity.
sometimes a lot of companies miss that. They just, anybody that like wants to pay for a ticket should get in. And it's like, kind of, we're
Yeah.
seeing that, right? With the commodification of Coachella, the World Cup, Super Bowl, right? It's like, I think people are starting to realize that like, oh, influencers are getting into like these,
Yeah.
into these events, but not like the real true blue fans, right? And
Yeah.
so when you start changing the dynamic, people kind of get a little more jaded about
Yes.
being a fan, and they're not
Yes.
as excited to participate with you because they're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
not even going to get rewarded anyway. But this
Yeah.
influencer who has, but doesn't actually care about the
Yeah.
sport or the property or the
Yeah.
IP is getting rewarded. Like, how is that
Yep.
anything?
Yep.
So something for companies to think about, and then also that like authenticity still matters so much. The fact that you can get Ryan Gosling and Ryan Reynolds and then all these athletes and Jay-Z to show up at these events throws back light onto these events and shows like we're
Yeah.
actually the real deal. We know what will get them to come out, right, to actually be with the fans, but then we also know what the fans want. So having that like meld of like both, and then also mixing in like the enough interest from like podcast hosts and reporters and other people that are like kind of like the middleman, the glue that kind of gives you the insights. The fact that they did bring Josh Horowitz to help announce Ghost Rider, who had like had that initial conversation with Ryan Gosling and Kevin Feige, like
Yeah.
shows that like we're rewarding the people that know, but
Yeah.
then B, also showing you that like we know we are also fans of the property
Yeah.
ourselves and are like bringing it back to all these things, which also kind of goes back to like what we were saying about Zendaya and, how she's putting in the little Easter eggs to,
Yeah.
in like her outfits, but then how that's become its own like marketing thing. So what are these things that you can be plugging away at and like finding like those little hooks for your audience to show that you're paying attention to them? Because isn't that what any of us want, especially as like a hardcore diehard fan, is to
Yeah.
feel as if you're paying attention to me because I am paying attention to you?
Yep. I think Disney, I will say this for Marvel. I know I've talked a lot of trash about them on this
Yeah.
podcast so far, but I do love them. But I do think they do a good job with creators. I think
Hmm.
they've done a really good job with finding out like who are the creators that people talk to. Josh is a great example, but also like Straw Hat Goofy. They've had him do a lot of like red carpet interviews and stuff because he breaks down a lot of the Marvel movies. So I think there's
Hmm.
opportunities there. I think it's been very cool to see like how they've not like it's not just an influencer, it's someone who clearly knows their stuff,
Hmm.
and then they will put them out there. I think that's been quite lovely to see is that they definitely looked for people who like you're not just popular, you know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
Like, would you be interested in doing like this kind of stuff? So I think there's definitely an interest there. That's well done. I love that you mentioned giving back. I think reciprocity is such an underrated concept in fandom and brandom, and brands want that love and devotion, but they don't do anything to feed it,
Hmm.
and they take it for granted a lot of the time. And so I think for the longest time, and it's not just a Marvel problem or a DC problem, there's been a lot of taking the fan for granted and thinking that you can give a subpar story and that they
Hmm.
will just gobble it up and not critique it because you're protected because they love you.
Hmm.
And then there's been so much backlash over the past like 5, 6 years because not all the projects, but some of the projects have not been good. And so it's like,
Hmm.
how do we navigate the general critiques that are valid and then the critiques that are just toxic fans that are making a living by being creators that just spew hatred about things they don't like. So I think there's definitely it's hard to navigate, but I
Hmm.
think it's definitely interesting for anyone that's either trying to instill fandom and brand them with the brand that they work with, or if they're trying to understand it at all. It's definitely a fascinating subject.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll throw in one last one, because what you were talking about reminded me that your event shouldn't contradict your brand identity, right? That was
Nope.
part of what was the problem with YC, right? Which is known for being selective,
Yep.
being that like harder to get into than Harvard, right?
Yeah.
And then when they opened up, the floodgates to more people, their hardcore audience was like, meh, maybe not. Maybe this isn't like
Yep.
what I want. So you have to kind of, still try to fit with the brand identity of the folks that have been there since day one and that expect it to be a certain thing. And then if you are wanting it to open up wider, like maybe, find a way to like try to make that work in a way that doesn't offend or
Yeah.
detract from like the the OG enthusiasts.
Yeah. Well, I think they could have done it with what they did. I think they could have done it as a one-off to say, like,
Mm,
this is this massive thing that's a ticketed event that anyone is welcome. And then because you were a member of YC, we're going to have a completely separate by invitation event for like the first
hmm
100 to RSVP or whatever. And you get to
uh-huh,
ask questions for it. Like, you can absolutely have your cake and eat it too, but you
hmm
do have to offer that understanding of this is this person's identity. This is how they associate with us. This is how we need to handle that relationship instead of rejecting it.
Agree.
Yeah, so I am one of the lucky ones who've been able to see Hadestown multiple times. It's easily my favorite musical. And
Mm,
they had a pro shot that came out this past Friday, and it is absolutely spectacular and beat Hamilton as the most revenue, box office revenue coming from a pro shot on opening weekend. So it was originally at 9.7, $9.8 million. It was originally set to do that, but that was actually underreported when they wound up doing the full report. I think it was like 10.1 or $10.2 million, which is goes over what Hamilton got whenever they released theirs. Which is fascinating. I love both of them, but I'm obviously a huge Hadestown fan, and this pro shot was absolutely fantastic. It had shots I was not prepared for. I was shocked at how good it was. Like, I loved the play, so I knew I was
mm,
gonna come in biased, and even I was shocked by how, like, absolutely spectacular it is. The team that did it, bravo. It had views from the back. There's, for those who don't know, and in the center there is a spinning wheel, and then at the core of that is something that spins but also goes up and down as you're going up and down into Hades. And we were able to look down into it like it's a pit, and
hmm.
you're also able to look at it coming up as they were showing up, coming back into Hades. Some really, really beautiful moments, some beautiful close-ups. You got to see all the main characters emote. It was absolutely, like, just absolutely breathtaking. If you're listening to this and you've either watched the play and love it or you've never seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. It is going to be on Apple TV. They already have it on pre-order. Speaking of Apple TV having taste,
Hmm.
and, I highly recommend. It was absolutely beautiful. The music's always fantastic, but, I went to see the original cast in London, which is where they did the pro shot, but I wasn't able to see Patrick Page as Hades because he tore his Achilles, and so, he didn't attend a lot of the public performances, but he's in the pro shot. He's wearing this, like, bedazzled boot, black boot, which was, and he has a cane and stuff, so you'll be able to see
Yeah.
that, but, it was absolutely fantastic, but I think it goes to the heart of what we wanna see. Like, there's a lot of anti-intellectual content right now. There's a lot of performative, ideas of like, "Oh, you have to read this and you have to read that," and all this other stuff, but I think that it says a lot about what we need is accessibility. I was raised in an area that was not near New York, so I didn't get to see a lot of Broadway shows until I
hmm
was older, but I lived on pro shots on PBS, on my local PBS station. I've watched, like, so many pro shots, and so, um, having accessibility to these kind of shows who can't go to London, who can't go to New York, or maybe they could, but they can't afford like a $300 ticket. I think it's huge. I think people need to be able to have access to the Odyssey, and they need to have access to Shakespeare, to Hadestown. I think it really matters, and so I'm hoping that the studios will get the idea that they need to have more pro shots of everything. I very much a big fan of that. I think there's definitely demand for it, and just like I said, the accessibility of people who would love to have these shows but would never see it any other way. People deserve the ability to be able to see these shows.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think what stands out to me again is that this is another I guess story based on like Greek myth and
Yeah.
like how cool is it that like you're right, like at a time when like AI or this whole idea that like nobody reads anymore, and like what's gonna happen to like art, and we have these two like examples of people who is just showing that people do want to see this. They want to see like good art in all its forms, right? In an IMAX theater, but also in a theater if they can like afford to go. Um, and you know, this whole idea that was like, younger generations don't want to see, theater, or they don't want to go to the movie theaters. And it's just like so wrong to think about when, the proof is it's there, right? Like all,
Yeah.
theaters are back, like, in a way that they haven't been in a really long time, mostly because young people are going to the theaters, right?
Yeah.
Um, and then now you have, this, and, I've heard about it, but I've never seen it. But now I'm like,
You have to
super interested
go.
in,
You have to go.
watching it. Yeah. Um,
It's
but
so
like,
beautiful. The music is fantastic. It
mhm,
basically it feels like you're in a New Orleans jazz club.
mhm.
Like it's a whole
That's cool.
vibe. This
Yeah.
the You have the musicians on stage like they're at a club.
Oh.
It's I highly recommend. The music's fantastic. Everyone is talented as can be. Cast is wonderful. Like
Mhm.
it's a beautiful, beautiful story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It also reminds me of like how we're starting to see so many like concert like movies
Yeah.
come out, right? Concert
Yeah.
documentaries, like Oasis is having one coming out based on one of
Yep.
the nights that we were there.
Yep.
And like how cool is that, that it's like, okay, we know that like actually going to the thing is gonna be super expensive, right? Like tickets are gonna
Yeah.
be super expensive, but like here's another way that we are making it accessible to people. And
Yep.
it's funny because it's like, so often we think about this as being like a money grab, like, oh,
Yeah.
here we go, the band just wants to make more money off of like, this concert that they
Yeah.
did. And it's like, well, yes, but a lot of people can't go to the concerts, right? Like
Yeah.
whether they just don't live in an area that they didn't go to, like the tickets are too expensive, right? um I think it's great that we have, this other option for people, to go to, right? Like the Eras tour, came out with the documentary. Oasis has this. There's the Katy Perry ones. Like if every artist is coming out with this as like a thing that we can expect from them, it's like, okay, maybe you don't go to the concert, but then you will go to the movie. Maybe it'll have the second order effect of like people not having to film inside the
Yep.
concerts, right? Or
Yep.
FaceTime people, right? We talked about this recently because Phoebe Bridgers said that she's gonna not allow phones to be in her in the concert while she's playing, right? And people were
Yeah.
like, "Well, but I use that to call like my friend to who can't afford to go there." And it's like, "Okay, but now you can see it much better in a theater," you know?
Yeah.
And so I like to, have that option. I love when we have options for people, like
Yeah.
that's one of those things that, especially I think in terms of like marketers, like what are these ways that we can offer another way for people to participate with us if they
Yeah.
can't do like the event, they can't come to the concert, they can't come to, um the event itself. Like what is
Yeah.
it that we can do, right? And I love seeing, not just these, but during the World Cup, right? Like there were several movie theaters that opened up to play the games, at the movie theaters. A couple of F1 races have also done that, where it's like you have that there. And I love this like thinking outside the box of like, how do we get people to participate together,
Yeah.
right? At a time when
Yeah.
like people are lonely and they want to meet other people and like are willing to come out. I think like that's one of
Yeah.
the things that like so many people here in America were surprised that like people want to watch soccer, like
Yeah.
not just that, but like you want to watch soccer at a bar because you're with other people. And like,
Yep.
why is it that Argentina and like France and Spain are having like block parties where their entire, plazas are closed out watching with a huge, screen for people to watch the games? Like, why can't
Yeah.
we have that here? Right. Like, I think that was part of like what people were complaining about. That's like FIFA said, no, we're not going to have these like fan, centers and people can't
Yeah.
tailgate,
Yeah.
and then like we should be thinking of more ways to get people to participate with each other as like a way to like bring people together, and like
Yeah.
have that be like a way of uniting people,
Yep.
and getting them to participate, not just because you're trying to make money, but because you, like I'm talking about earlier, you want to raise the boats of the industry, right? Like
Yeah.
if you want to make soccer be a thing here in America, you need to get people to like
Yeah.
watching it, right? And they
Yeah.
might not want to watch the game, but they'll certainly go to a bar and like hang out
Yeah.
with like a bunch of people and, have that be the experience.
Yeah.
Um, so what are other ways that like we can do this as like a way to promote, our like, company, our brands, of bringing people together at a time when like, there's a dearth of that.
Yeah. Well, I think we want it. I think going back to like human needs, we want these like monocultural moments where we're
Mhm.
all talking about the same thing.
Totally.
We saw it with NASA Artemis 2. We saw it with the
Mhm.
World Cup where
Mhm.
whether you are in person or you're on Twitter or you're on LinkedIn or you're on Instagram or Threads, wherever you are online,
Mhm.
you see other people experiencing something that you were
Mhm.
also paying attention to. And there's something really beautiful about that.
Yeah.
It gives you proximity without it impacting distance. That you
Mhm.
know that like I'm watching this and there's millions of other people who care about this at the
Mhm.
exact same moment. I feel like the world needed the World Cup in so many ways, and I don't want to sound like Pollyanna or saccharine, but it
No.
really did. It really
Yeah.
did. Like you have people coming together, celebrating cultures, realizing that like
Mhm.
we're not that different.
Mhm.
We want to have fun, we want to have good times, we want to celebrate our favorite players and our favorite teams. I think it was just really beautiful to have people on site and on social really kind of celebrating and talking about the same things. I think it does something really good to us to be able to
Mhm.
feel like we belong. And that really is what it comes down to is you feel like you belong because you're paying attention to the same things that those people are paying attention to. And it being something positive too. Like
Mhm.
you are belonging and paying attention to something that is unprecedented in a good way.
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
rage bait, it's not bad. It's like this is
Right.
good stuff. Yeah. There's something really powerful about that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it kind of helped that America isn't that into soccer because it allowed so many of the smaller teams to like get their flowers, right? Like I
Yeah.
just saw today that the goalie for Cape Verde was signed with like Miami, and like
I
what a
love
feel
that
good
for
story,
him.
right?
I
Like the
love
fact
that.
that like this came from that, or Cape Verde, that they got all their, all this attention,
All their tourism is
Egypt.
going up too. It's awesome.
Mhm. Like, it kind of allowed everybody to come together in a way, and it's like, and it's funny because at the time I was like thinking, it's like, Americans love an underdog story, but it was like it felt like it was the world, cheering on all these teams and coming
Yeah.
together in a way that like, it hadn't really before. And I mean, as much as I want to say rah 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 to America, like I really do think that it was because Americans were paying attention. We
Yeah.
have, ownership of all the social medias and all like the, TV networks that like everybody pays attention to. And so like
Yeah.
when Americans were like in on it, it's just like, okay, we're all talking about the same thing. And it's not like the world is off talking about a different topic.
Yeah.
And so I think that for that reason, plus the fact that, FIFA made almost like $15 billion from it, in 2038, we might get the World Cup back. And I'm like celebrating that because it's like, think again, like now that we'll have more time of Americans being a little bit more into soccer
Yeah.
and realizing, hey, remember the good time that we had last time? It could be so much better if we have more teams. And like maybe
Yeah.
this time the cities will push back and be like, no, we do want to have like fan events that everybody can come to. Um, I think like that should be like a huge lesson from people that like there is this whole and like I understand, right? It's like it's a business. They want to make as much money as possible and commoditizing everything as much as you can do. But by including more people, it ends up bringing more money because
Yeah.
like all the bars are making money, all the restaurants are making money, like all these things like it are flowing back into the community in ways that like you can't do if you're just closing off the event to the people
Yeah.
that are going to the stadium, and then everybody else is just watching it at home on the TV by
Yeah.
themselves, right? And I think that that should be a huge lesson here. Like I'm wondering what's going to happen when like the Olympics are here in 28 in LA in 28, right? And then if we do have it in 2038, like what more we're doing to like encourage people to come together, because
Yeah.
it really seemed as if like Philadelphia ended up learning, or like Boston also earning, like we're gonna close down the areas here, let people come out and like participate
Yeah.
with everybody else instead of like allowing cars to continue driving through the city, like
Yeah.
so I think like that should be like a lesson of like how do we open it up to get more people to participate, especially
Mhm.
for like, you already have like the hardcore fans that are, going to be there, but like the ones that you kind of have to convince a little bit more. It's like how do you get them to participate? And those are
Yeah.
things that I think all of us like as marketers should be like thinking about, because it's like, yes, you're always selling to like your core demo, of course, but you also need to start bringing in new fans, right? In order to get them involved, and eventually be more into like your brand,
Yeah.
so that's kind of a lesson for me from this, like what are ways that we can try to be more inclusive of people.
Yeah.
One of the things I've talked about before is how Taylor Swift is like a master of this, where it's like you have these like separate windows of like when people, come to participate. It's like you have the Eras tour that people kind of come to, but you also film that. And then you have that come out in the theaters. Like she had the deal with AMC to go direct to them and like have them like showing her, showing it on IMAX and like the theater. And then you have like, it going on to Disney where it's like, more accessible, right? So it's like you're offering levels of accessibility to people depending on where they're at, whether
Yep.
that's, fandom of like, as a hardcore fan, I will go to like her concert, of course, or, I'm not that into her, but I'll watch, when it comes out on Disney Plus,
Mhm.
or because they can't afford it, right? So these
Yeah.
are like things that we should be thinking about of how do we make things inclusive of people and find them where they're at. And then also of like, how do you create new fans like
Yeah.
each time that you're trying to like build, your brand? It's like you can't just continue going after like the hardcore fans. It's like you have to have levels of people that you're willing to like bring in some way. And so like with soccer, it's like, you get to you have the fans obviously go to the stadium, the ones that are willing to, pay that amount of money to like go there because they actually care, love it, love the sport. But then you have like the community involvement of like, I think we could have done better of like, one thing that was like a lot of fun was like realizing that in America, pretty much every country had some sort of like community that like supported them because like the
Yeah.
people, the immigrants are from there. So it's like,
Yeah.
how do you highlight that a little bit more in order to give them more support of like, hey, maybe we should have people go to these areas and like party with them,
Yeah.
So those are ways to like, I would love for like, these big brands and like companies to be thinking about like what they're doing to be able to get more fans and like grow everything.
Yeah. No, I love that. Completely agree.
Awesome. Any ones from you? You can bring it back to Hades Town.
I think for me, it just comes down to it always comes back down to the human when
Yeah.
and what we need and what we're feeling and stuff like that. I think that a lot of people you were talking about how do you build new fans. It's just like with customers, your current customers are the best ticket to create new customers.
Mm-hmm.
The current fans are the best ones to create new fans. If you look at how the Scottish fans came over and completely wooed Boston to the point where
Mm-hmm.
like Boston and Glasgow are now sister cities, which
I
I love.
know.
Then you also have the Norwegian fans and, like,
Yeah.
them rowing and stuff, like,
Mm-hmm.
no one was a better ambassador for their countries than the fans that came over, and then
Mm-hmm.
the Americans fell absolutely in love with them, and by extension, fell in love with the game, and so,
Mm-hmm.
I think it says a lot about how there's something about going back to the real, going back to everything that we talked about,
Yeah.
the sense of belonging and actually having real experiences with people, actually getting to meet people from different countries and
Yeah.
not just assuming who they are based on what the news tells you or what some politician tells you that you should be
Yeah.
thinking about them, to actually meet them and realize who they are and what they are. I think that was a really great celebration of and we saw it in Canada, we saw it in Mexico, we saw it in the
Mm-hmm.
US, like, we saw it in all 3 of the host countries. I think it shows something that we so desperately want to connect, like,
Yeah.
we wanna have fun together. It like, there was so many things and it was like, everyone's having a party.
Yeah.
It's a great time, and I think that that says a lot about how at its core, humanity is good, and
Yeah.
we wanna connect, we wanna have experiences together, and I think when you go back to, like, the core parts of what humanity is, it's everything we've talked about today. It's storytelling, it's
Yeah.
flaws, it's connection, it's humanity, it's feeling like you belong in a world where you don't trust what you see on your screen, like,
Yeah.
it's all of that comes together for you to realize that, like, I these experiences, these in-person moments, these opportunities to go see things that everyone else is watching at the same time, it makes us feel like we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, and that's a really calming and safe feeling for people.
Agree, agree. Yeah, I think, like you said earlier, this whole episode ended up being about quality storytelling and like humanity, right? Where it's
Yeah,
um, getting people to participate and feel like what gets them to actually show up and like
yeah,
participate, right? I think people are becoming more discerning about what they're willing to spend money on, right?
yes,
They're willing to spend on something that I feel took a lot of work, to do, like the Odyssey. Whereas like Moana, like CGI, I think that's part of what's also a problem with like Doomsday and like, the previous like Supergirl and, Fantastic Four and all those. Like it doesn't feel as if the love of the game was there, right? Like I feel like
Yeah.
Nolan felt it, and then all the actors. And I feel like that's what people want to reward now, right?
Yeah.
And, with Hadestown, that's like the same thing where it's like, seeing the story and like the art and the craft that goes into it. Like, I want to reward that. Like, the way that you're
Yeah.
talking about it makes me feel like this is actually a thing that like would get me to spend my money, you
Yep.
know? And then, going back to, the fan festivals and events, like people want to feel as if the amount of money that they're spending isn't a waste of time or
Yep.
isn't a fire festival, where
Yep.
it's like you're going and you're being sold a product, or an event that doesn't exist because all
Yeah.
they care about is taking as much money as they can from you, you know?
Yeah.
I think part of what also made the World Cup work was that like there was so much tension and so much drama going on the
There
football
were
pitch. And
so
even the
many
people
great
that didn't
matches. Oh my
understand,
gosh.
right? Like
Yeah.
even the people that didn't understand the game, could understand the passion of the fans that they were seeing
Yeah.
on TV or like in the bars with them, and like that energy is palpable. And I feel like people want energy. They so much want energy. Like everything that you've mentioned, right? Like Artemis 2, like the energy of being like, oh my God, we just sent these people to space, like
Yep.
how fucking cool is that, right?
Yep.
Here where it's like, the conferences of like, wow, like Ryan Gosling, came out and all these like little Easter eggs of like this property that like only those people that really know. So it's like you feel like you're getting access to things. These are all things I think that like, marketers should be looking at. Because it's like I feel like so many of us are defaulting back to like we want to pay for things that are worth it. We
Yeah.
want our energy, to be reciprocated, and we want what we put in to like matter,
Yes.
and
Yes.
so many companies are just not doing that.
Yeah.
And they're just like missing out on people or just assuming that like, oh, well, we're the default, like
Yeah. Yeah.
one of the things that like this reminds me of is the Coca-Cola rebrand that just like happened, which I thought like actually worked, and so many people were kind of like comparing it to the whole Marlboro, font. And I thought like, but that's also a riff off the fact that Diet Coke, which is like their most popular soda right now, is called a fridge cigarette for so many people. And
It
so they're
is.
like, associating it with that. So it shows
Yeah.
that they're like thinking about people,
Yeah.
their fans,
Yeah. They pay attention. Yeah.
Right, right. Whereas, the Cracker Barrel rebrand, which happened a year ago, and the CEO just resigned from, which honestly, I think I didn't realize she was still there.
I'm shocked she lasted this long. But
I know, right?
there's a difference between, I think that's a great example if you pair it with YC.
Uh-huh.
It's if you like completely dismiss and alienate your current market because you want to be something you're not.
Hmm.
That's exactly what Cracker Barrel did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
exactly why
So
it burned.
exactly. And it's funny because it's like Red Lobster also, was it this week or last week, announced that they are also modernizing their restaurants. And
Mhm.
I'm like, did you not see what happened to Cracker Barrel? Like, why would you do that? Like your brand identity, like you can't just get rid of it for supposed fans that you think are going to be there
Yeah.
when by eliminating your current fans,
Yep.
and I think, some brands are too quick to just like honestly, so when the Coca-Cola thing first came out, I was like, oh my God, are they changing the font? Like the Coca-Cola font? And I was like, they wouldn't do that. And then no, thank God they didn't, because that would have been like
Yeah.
one of the stupidest things that they could have done. But the fact that they just, added it to it, I'm like, okay, this makes sense to me. I like
Yeah.
it. Good for them. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's like the first rebrand that like, I mean, is it a full rebrand? It's like an addition to the brand.
Yeah.
But anyway, that hasn't gotten completely, shat on.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christina. Where can people find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm not calling it X. You can find my book anywhere you buy books, Transforming Customer Brand Relationships. And thanks for having me. This was great.
Yeah, definitely. This was fun. Always love chatting with you and talking about, everything pretty much.
Same.
Awesome. And then you can follow me at Sonia Baschez everywhere. And then the podcast at Meme Team Pod on Spotify, TikTok, and Instagram. Bye.